Yo, this your boy EC22 of the Fan with the Fan channel, man. Listen, please, man, like, subscribe, share, leave comments, man. Thank you for watching these videos, man. Join the conversation. Real quick, I want to try to get through this as quick as possible. Listen, I want to talk about the issues surrounding the I Am Athlete podcast and the Pivot podcast. If you don't know, Channing Crowder, Fred Taylor, Brandon Marshall, along with Reggie Waynes, got together and decided to start a podcast called I Am Athlete during the pandemic. Shortly after a few episodes, whatever, I think Reggie Wayne stepped away. They brought in Chad Ochocinco. The rest is history. The platform took off. Everybody loved it. I think that platform, I Am Athlete platform, sparked a lot of different platforms. Everybody thought it was a great idea. It was a great show. And man, it was a trendsetter for a lot of former athletes, even current athletes, to try to do the same. Round about, I think, end of season 2, maybe middle of season 3, I can't remember the exact time frame, we noticed that Fred and Channing was no part longer on the shows. And then shortly after that, we see that here comes the form of the pivot. Now you have Channing Crowder, Fred Taylor, along with Ryan Clark starting to pivot, and now the speculation is why was the split. And of course, we, the fans, has been asking in the comment section what's the lowdown. We couldn't get any answers. Over the course of time, Channing and Fred have kind of threw their spiel in their words, in their perspective of trying to be respectful, trying to take the high ground and not necessarily defame or demean Brandon in any type of way. Now, here we are. There has been seen this back and forth going on of late. I will say that up until probably a year ago, I know Brandon has been kind of lying in silence. Channing and Fred has already stated that they are taking the high ground, but this is where I give a little pushback to Channing and Fred. If you're going to take the high ground is to not come in at all. That's just a little piece of game for you gentlemen out there, that if you're really going to take the high ground is not coming at all. I'm not saying Brandon took the high ground, but I don't recall Brandon speaking to after you guys did in the public setting or on a forum such as the podcast. Maybe he said some things offline, whatever. What I think happened, I think it's clear exactly what happened based on all the information that you guys have given collectively. I think that when the idea to start a podcast was thrown out there, I think you guys were seeing two different things. I think Channing, Fred, Reggie, and maybe even Ocho, as he came in, was thinking I Am Athlete podcast. Brandon clearly, based on everything he said, was thinking and had a vision for the I Am Athlete brand. And those are two different things. You know, we come into a podcast versus a branding. I do remember, I think Channing said in a couple of incidents that he talked with Brandon, and I think Brandon also vouched for the statement, that he wanted Channing to be a part of it, or he may have wanted both of them to be a part of, all of them to be a part of the whole brand, and they respectfully declined and said that the podcast is what they was there for. Brandon went on to just try to create this brand, and he did. I don't think Brandon had malicious intent. Of course, I'm not in a circle of those friends. I can only, as a spectator from the outside looking in, I don't think that he had malicious intent. I think that the business framework surrounding Brandon is a little sketchy. The word they like to use is bad businessman or bad business partner. Maybe so. But I think Brandon's vision superseded his skill, his talent, and his influence. You know, and that's saying a whole lot right there. But, you know, think about that if you will. I think, like I said, I'll say it again. Brandon's vision and ideals superseded his skill set, his talent, and his influence. And I think that's the reason why. Because when the I Am Athlete podcast took off, it was the podcast that was driving the energy behind the brand. And so when it came down to split monies, Brandon was under the assumption that since I paid all this money up front, then the money that I'm making from I Am Athlete platform podcast is going to go right into the brand. And I think that's where he messed up at. Obviously, Channing and Fred didn't co-sign on a brand. They wanted the podcast. And so from their mindset, all the money that's making from the podcast should be divided from their perspective 4 ways, you know. And then we don't want to get into the legalities behind the producer, Alicia, and stuff like that. and what was promised to her and what their contract was as being a producer of the show and her team. That's basically what happened. It was two visions. One vision was for the podcast success, and the other vision for branding. I mean, Brandon goes on to to get a deal with NASCAR. I Am NASCAR, I Am Woman, a House of Athlete training facility, as well as clothing stores that was popping up. I mean, there was a lot of energy created around the I Am Athlete brand, and Brandon put in his mind a lot of money. Fred and Channing part is that you come to work and you see all this stuff around you, and you know that you haven't contributed anything. You haven't opened up the checkbook, you haven't slid $1 across the table, and you see all this going on. And I know in your mindset you're thinking a handshake is a handshake, or agreement is agreement. I still think there should be a little bit more energy from you guys to step up and say, wait a minute, let's put pause and let's really figure out what's really going on here. But they all agreed that they made the mistake. From their own words, they said they didn't button up the business, and that's usually where we're at. Cam Newton saves the day, in my opinion. I think he's a hero for the culture because he came in and everybody has got on their platform is trying to basically, in my opinion, choose sides. And when they try to get to the details of what happened, I think it could come across as messy and keeping this thing going. But I think Cam was very, and the reason, and the whole purpose of the video was not to highlight the mess. We already know the mess, but to highlight exactly what Cam did. Because I don't think that was being highlighted enough.
Right? Because I only can be funky with you, right? There's been people to say, Brandon don't do good business. Mm-hmm. There's people that also say, no funny shit, Brandon's crazy. Mm-hmm. There's been also people that says he battles with multiple personality disorder. It's like one day he's good, the next day don't talk to him. There's also been people that says Brandon can't get out of Brandon's way. Mm-hmm. He's a narcissist.
Keep going.
There's this whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. That even for me at times, I've questioned. I said, yo, like, if we're keeping it funky, I ain't never seen that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like me, like I talk to Channing, mm-hmm. right? I talk to Fred, and they voice their opinion. I talk to business people that we both know, mm-hmm. right? And some of what they said was true. And when I say I'm not speaking about one specific person, some of it they said is true, but some of it made me say like that's discretionary, and you're entitled to feel how you feel.
That's right.
Cam, from outside looking in, came in and said, you know what, we need to put this to bed. I need to, and he challenged Brandon in his own platform, and he let Brandon know, hey, these are the things that people are saying about you. I need you to own it. These are the narratives that are created behind you. I need you to own it. And yes, there is a lot of fault on you that you need to own up to, Brandon. And Brandon, saying reluctantly, from my opinion and from my perspective, agreed upon it, but yet is still dealing with pride as far as wanting to accept full responsibility. I think there's enough blame to go around. And I don't think, like I said again, I don't think Brandon had malicious intent. Brandon, who is Brandon is. Brandon has long talked about his struggles with mental health. And I don't know what that's like being in a room with Brandon. Obviously, he could probably rub people from the wrong way. Sometimes how he gets into that spell to where he are saying things and people are taking things with personal. But I think after looking at the video that Cam did, first of all, I am Team Pivot. I love the Pivot. I love the podcast. I support them and everything they do. I try to modern what I do behind what they do. And I love those guys for what they brought to the culture of Black media. What I will say is that I think they missed the point because Brandon is going to be Brandon. And I think they attack Brandon's comment, but Brandon has a perspective just like you have a perspective. He's not going to come out right now and say, hey man, it's all me, it's all my bad. I mean, he has a perspective, whether it's delusion or not in your opinion, or whether he's telling lies, as Ryan Clark would say, or not. At the end of the day, he's a man who obviously in his own word is is annoyed, and what's the word Cam used? Cam said bitter behind the whole situation, and he's hurt. So therefore, he's going to have a perspective that's not going to necessarily align with what you guys, because like I said, you guys saw it two different ways. So it's okay that he still holds on to his side of the story. But I think they missed the point. I think they missed the point of what Cam was doing. Cam is trying to rehabilitate Brandon. He's trying to get Brandon to the help he needs.
If I had to title that for you, that was the emancipation of Brandon understanding that he has to go on the journey to find Brandon.
I love how he told Brandon to trust him, to hear him. The conversation, in my opinion, was very candid. Cam brought up a conversation that they had some time ago offline outside of a restaurant, and it brought tears to Brandon's eyes. And now that's what made me realize, okay, Brandon's dealt with a lot. Brandon talks about how for the first time at 39 years old, he has to try to figure out who Brandon is. And that makes a lot of sense when you look at everything Brandon has done. Brandon has been chasing Hall of Fame status throughout his career, trying to be the best receiver he can. Post-career, we see him trying to get into the media space for so long and be a businessman, be an entrepreneur. But when has Brandon sat down and recognized who Brandon is? And I think that's what Cam was highlighting. And I wish that the guys from I Am Athlete go back and watch that video and understand it for what it was. And I believe with my whole heart, and I actually think the responsibility falls on the guys from from the Pivot podcast I'm in. I think the responsibility falls on them to say, you know what, let's offer an apology to Brandon. If you're really going to take the high road, because the high road is not, oh, it's his fault, but I'm not going to get into it. That's not the high road. The high road is offer an apology when you don't think you need to offer one. That's the high road. That's the Christian thing to do, Ryan Clark. You know, is to say, listen, for anything I may have caused Brandon, I apologize. I would love to sit down and come to an understanding that we all messed up. Whether Brandon Marshal agreed to his part or not, there's still a process. And I think that's the high road that need to be taken. Because this, and I know I'm putting this video out there, but this has to stop. I do want to clear up one point that Channing made. Channing said that Brandon was trying to come across like he made him. Shannon, I don't think, and I watched that video in its entirety, and I think that when Brandon was speaking your name, I think that you was looking through a different lens, obviously because of the history between you and Brandon. But I want to clear it up. He was giving you praise. He was basically, from what I was hearing, that he was basically saying that Shannon has a gift that I don't think he realized how good it is. And he wanted to give Channing or help give Channing a platform that can take flight of his own outside of I Am Athlete. Brandon at no point said that he made you. And when you bring in words like that or statements like that, that clearly wasn't vocalized by Brandon, I know now you're seeing through a different lens, because those not the words he said, and there was even words that was similar to what he said. He kept saying, Channing is great, Channing is great, Channing is great. You know what I'm saying? That's all he said. And I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling the way you feel, because obviously there's still some emotion attached there. I think Cam Newton is the guy, and he, as y'all would say, he's him, that will help resolve this situation.
People, help me out. Process, product. There were people a part of your process that helped you build the product.
I can't answer the question. You told me I can't speak.
You can't. And that's all I'm saying. When I make a statement, nobody's winning right now. Because at some particular point in time, you felt a way. You felt that that person was talented without a backhand compliment. You felt that this person was this without saying, but they are. And to my point, to just this whole thing, I'm gonna give you, my thing is, He helps people who helps the show.
That's right.
I'm not saying that you don't help people or haven't compensated people for building the empire of I Am Athlete. What I am saying is the boss in you deserves more peace than what you have now.
That's right.
And that's all I want. Because I've heard conversation with this person, I heard this person and that person, and I heard conversation with this person, I heard that. And it's up to me to have my own thing.
Right.
And I say, Brandon ain't never crossed me.
As a fellow podcaster myself, I don't have the platform that you guys have, but I am definitely influenced by the energy that you guys throw out there. And I wish all you guys do well. And I hope I get that same energy in return. But then nobody's perfect. You know, we all make mistakes. We all have things we deal with. So I don't like this singling out Brandon, trying to highlight his mental health and saying that he's the reason, he's the cuckoo nut that caused I Am Athlete to fold, and that's why everybody else has left him, because they see who he is. And you know, nobody is an expert on Brandon Marshal other than God himself. I don't care what T.O. is saying, what Ryan Clark is saying, what Shannon Crowder is saying, what Fred Taylor is saying, what LaShawn McCoy may say in the future, what Pac-Man Jones may say in the future, or anybody that was surrounded I Am Athlete, or anybody has anything to do with Brandon Marshal. Even Cam Newton himself is trying to come in and be the mediator of this situation, or not mediator, trying to remedy this situation. Nobody is an expert for Brandon Marshal other than his creator, and that's God Almighty, you know. And so, if you really want to know what's going on with Brandon Marshal, please, I would advise you and I would encourage you to pray for him and ask God to give you wisdom concerning him, and also ask God that if it's advantageous for if it's His will, if it's advantageous, if it's His will, that He would allow you guys paths to cross to squash the situation. But whether you guys meet or not, and whether God give the okay to meet in person, whatever, you can do this in your own prayer closet. You can dead in this situation. You come out on your platform and say, it's all is forgiven. That is a Christian thing to do, to let it go. Because I Am Athlete shined a huge light on your talent and what you guys can do and what you bring to this media space. A huge light. And there's not a dollar amount you can put on that, because what was shined was who you men are in your character and who you men are in your personality. $20 million, $30 million, $1 billion is not enough, because you're worth more than that. So at least thank Brandon for the platform to put you guys on camera. I mean, have a heart, for crying out loud. Love the guy. But anyway, this your boy EC22, the Fairweather Fan Channel, man. That I would love to say, and I would love to sit back and say this is the last podcast that talked about it, but I doubt it. But I would love to say it, and I hope both parties see this video, and maybe I would try to find a way to send it to them if they dare to listen to it. This your boy EC22, and I'm out.